I've been the best title I like about myself is architect for the poorest of the poor. And that I think probably sums up everything that I'm doing today, because I've given up the role of the star architect. I've given up the role of the, you know, I don't know, one who does, big sort of structures or buildings. And I don't believe anymore in acting like a prima donna. I now I'm just working with the people now, and I think it's far more for me. It's very rewarding. Well, it's always very difficult to explain. It's a very long story, okay, to say why and how. But I think, I mean, I had done lots of, rather large buildings when I was practicing as an architect. I did do a lot of some social housing. I did work in disadvantaged areas. But then somehow, as every architect's practice is, you are overtaken by larger buildings and corporations and banks and all these, very kind of elitist organizations. And you tend to get sucked into that particular way of doing things. And at some point in my life, I decided that it wasn't working for me, and I had to just get off whatever was being done. And I'm just very happy that I did that. And then I actually had decided, because my husband had actually owned an insurance company, and he decided to sell it, and then he became a writer. And I thought, well, it's not fair. I should also, do my writing, because we'd collected a lot of material on heritage, on history, on everything, and I thought I should be doing that. But as it happened, first I worked with UNESCO in this one fantastic World Heritage site called the Lahore Fort, which gave me a tremendous opportunity to learn about how really these buildings were put together, and the use of lime more than anything else. And so that was amazing and experience, because being in a historic site, I would go and live there. I had this tremendous opportunity, and it's quite incredible the kind of opportunities I've had in my life when I think back. And this is one of the most amazing ones. And then, of course, in 2005, we had this massive earthquake where 80,000 families, 80,000 lives were lost, 400,000 families were displaced. And it was a major, major disaster, which we'd never seen in our lives before, never thought about it. And I think once you work in a field like that, or if you see so up close, this kind of a tragedy, then I think it changes your life. And it's certainly changed mine. And I went up there. I had no funding. I had no workforce. I'd retired. Literally, I went along, and I thought I'd go for 2 or 3 months, do whatever I can do, like everybody else was doing. I mean, everybody was there, right? I mean, there's not a moment or a moment in time when you could stay away, because it was a real national tragedy, and we had people coming in from all over the world. So I went there, and I found it was an amazing experience, because it was very disturbing. I'd never done it before. It was terrible to see people in that state, but the spirits were high. And most of all, I had hardly any funding when I went there. I had no workforce, as I said. And then when my appeal went out that I'm working in this area and I needed volunteers, you won't believe, Asti, how many volunteers came from Pakistan, but also from abroad. Young people from all over the world came, and the professors, and then from Pakistan, architects. And I mean, it's an amazing thing. You're never alone when you're working in this kind of field. So I think that's what kind of led me into it. And then Pakistan just suffered from so many disasters almost every year that I don't think I had a choice. So here I am. What can I do? I don't have a choice. Well, inspiration, if you look at, I mean, I work a lot in mud. So Hassan Fateh, of course, is the, real kind of guru, if you like, of earth buildings, because he's the one who promoted all that before we ever thought about it. And I've had the great privilege of having met him, and what an amazing person he was. And so I think I tried that out very long time ago in the early 80s. I tried to build a mud building, but I could do only one or two of them. And then, of course, as I said, everything else overtook me and I just couldn't do anymore. But it was something that always stayed with me. And so when I went into these areas, and they are really disadvantaged areas, poverty levels are very high everywhere, but the building materials are really amazing that are available. I'd never really known much potential about it, and I'd never really known the potential of lime until I worked in that fantastic World Heritage Site. So I decided to start using those materials. And since I always thought that when you worked with people, you had to make everything very kind of economical. So in the earthquake area, I started off with the debris, like debris of the stone that was lying, and we could take it and make the walls. I learned how to design for earthquakes. So there was a lot of wood available with the collapsed joists and so on. And then I could, we started to reuse them. And so it was a really amazing learning experience because I'd never done that kind of thing before, never known about this. And the terrain was so different because it's very mountainous, very beautiful, but very treacherous. Because in the beginning, there would be lots of these aftershocks, and the whole mountains would rumble. And it's very frightening also, because you didn't know when it might happen. And so one learned to live with whatever things were, how things were. You learned to accept a lot of things. And I understood then what my country really was about. That my country had these people who are very generous. Even if they had nothing else, they would lay out everything for you because you had gone to help them. And they would bring out this little, the cot that maybe not in a very good state, on which you could sit. They would bring a table which might have been damaged. They would bring a cloth that would be beautifully embroidered, but all in tatters. But they would bring it for you, whatever the best they had. And they would serve you with the World Food Program biscuits, tea, and eggs. That's all they had. And they put it all in front of you. So the generosity was amazing. And I learned about my people. I also learned that they lived in very difficult circumstances, and women particularly. If you wanted to use a toilet, there were no toilets. And I would ask them, what do you do? And they said, well, before Fajr, which is the morning prayers, and after Maghrib, which is the evening prayers, behind bushes. That was the toilet. I mean, this is the most undignified and most awful way of living that I could think of, But this is how most people in my country were living, and many other countries. It's not only mine. So I think when you go through these experiences, it just changes your life, Hasti. There's no other way. I mean, you can't not think about what everybody else is going through. And so I just, I just felt that, I mean, I didn't know it as an architect whether I could do something when I first went. And then I found ways by which, yes, I could help them. Because again, another interesting thing that I found was that, of course, we were all designers. We are taught to design. That is the best strength that I think architects have. This ability to design well for any kind of people, any kind of circumstances. And I felt that design was my greatest, if you like, advantage that I could share with everybody. And I learned to work with them, for them. I learned a lot from them. Women became my real collaborators because I was one of the few women on the scene in these kind of circumstances. So I had that advantage. So they listened to me. I learned a lot from them. They had craft knowledge. It's amazing what they do have. So yeah, I just learned a lot. Right. Yeah. Well, thank you for asking those questions because those are very important projects for me, especially the Pakistan Chula, which is a stove, but it's an earthen stove. And normally stoves here in my country are the ones that poor people use are open fire stoves where very injurious to health. Children get burnt. It's filthy because you're sitting on the floor. You may have dirt and muck around yourself. There may be all kinds of, dogs and cats. I mean, it's a very filthy situation. So, of course, you can never survive under such circumstances. So because I started to work in flood area, I decided I learn a lot, as you probably know, from tradition and from heritage, because that's where I come from, basically. And I found that when I first started to work in the flood area, there's this great city of Mohenjo-daro, a Bronze Age city, like 5,000 years old in Pakistan, World Heritage Site. And the city is on platforms. So I decided, why am I not building platforms for people so that they are protected from the floods, right? So everything you do has to be elevated. And so that's how this particular earthen stove, which is been designed actually by a partner organization called Park Swiss Technologies, where you light in one part of the stove, and then the smoke sort of moves into the second one, so it cooks on. Or there two dishes can be cooked. Then it moves into a chimney and goes out. So it doesn't harm you. And apart from the when it first goes out, there's a bit of smoke, but that's it. So it's been amazingly life changing for women, because the platform that was earlier on not very large, I thought about 6 feet, about 2 meters wide would be enough. But now they're becoming really huge platforms because women have started to use them for all kinds of work because they're elevated. And most of all, what is really quite interesting, that when they sat on the floor, everybody would look down upon them because they were crouching, their posture was not acceptable. And then suddenly they're sitting on this earthen platform, and they treat it as if it's a throne, because suddenly their backs are erect, and they're giving out food to everybody, dishing out a nice, clean environment. And suddenly there's respect for them. So suddenly, this mundane earthen stove, has given them so much dignity, so much respect from the community, that that again is life transforming. And I want that for my women. So my most of my focus is that women should be the ones that achieve some kind of dignity in their lives, because they don't have it in countries like ours. And somehow they must get respect. So I think architecture can play a very important role in lifting people out of this terrible state of the way things are. I think it can actually bring about social change. That's what I'm after. How can you do that? And because I'm able to use local materials, lime is an amazing material to use. All my earth buildings are safe, because lime stabilizes earth, and so it doesn't get washed away in water. It does not disintegrate. Of course, you need to keep on repairing from time to time, but that's all. And so I've hit upon this wonderful formula, which has been used originally in heritage buildings, let's say in South America, but never in humanitarian field. So I was able to do that, and that was one thing. So the chula has been quite incredible. I mean, if I give you some figures, for instance, I've done this very large monster of a building called the Finance and Trade Center in Karachi, which is 750,000 square feet. Okay. Now, in all of that big building with granite and glass and everything else, maybe 2,500 people use it. Okay. That's all. And maybe another 5,000 will pass by on the road. Let's say it's 10,000 or more. And then you look at my stove, which is a no cost stove to a donor. Nobody has to pay. The housewives build it. They actually make it themselves. But we have these barefoot entrepreneurs, which I'm now calling barefoot eco entrepreneurs, actually, because it's all ecologically driven. And so they go and they teach the housewife how to make that stove. And then the housewife learns and she makes it. So something like, I think we're close to 100,000 that have been built now. So out of that, at least 45,000 have been actually have been really the result of this hard work by one woman called Champa, who's an icon. Now she charges only 200 rupees, which is less than a euro, less than a dollar, less than a pound. And she has become a millionaire by just teaching how to make the stove. Okay. That's the kind of millionaires I have in mind. There can be so many of them now. That's what I'm trying to do now. How can you create, multiple barefoot millionaires out of the poor? So this is where I am. And you asked me about my barefoot eco entrepreneurs. I've got so many teams now because of the flood work that we've been doing. There's scores of teams that have been created of different aspects, and they're the ones who are going now and teaching others and are charging small amounts of money. So they're flourishing, and people are learning, and they're doing things. So the momentum is growing, and soon I will become redundant. I won't be needed. Hopefully, none of my organization will be needed. Hopefully, they'll just take it on, and we transform the whole country. Well, the thing is that, of course, I'm very conscious of the fact that we should not hurt the planet because I've done enough damage in my life earlier on. Okay. So, as a very famous writer, architectural journalist, Oliver Wainwright, titled one of his stories on me saying, I was a star architect for 36 years. Now I'm atoning, which is exactly what I'm trying to do now. That I try to make up for whatever damage I've done, and I don't want to create any more damage to the planet. Okay. And I've hit upon these amazing materials that as an architect, I didn't look at when I was practicing as an architect. Mud a little bit only, but not really much. Bamboo, never, never. Okay. And lime also, no, never. Because we use cement. Who used lime? I mean, come on, we were never trained. We never taught about lime. So suddenly I've got this combination of materials and I've started to build, and it's all zero carbon because first of all, uh, lime emits a bit of carbon when you actually burn it, but it absorbs carbon from the air. So I think over time that neutralizes. But because now my mainstay of my work today is bamboo, especially in my flood areas, because it's very fast, I've designed this prefabricated system which is modular. So 8 of them make a room. It's called the Lari octagreen, which is an octagon. And as you probably know, bamboo is a fast growing material. It's not wood. So we are saving all the wood in the world. And it sequesters carbon. So in fact, when you build with bamboo, you are actually doing carbon negative buildings. So and earth again is totally zero carbon. It just has so many different attributes. And with lime, it works so well. So my combination of these materials has resulted in absolutely zero carbon kind of structure. And something that's very fast, very strong. It is resilient. It's all climate responsive. I mean, whether earthquakes or floods don't have any impact on them. I mean, they survive. And of course, we must also remember, if for any reason my bamboo structures did collapse, there'll be there'll be no life threat because life safety is always assured. They're very, very light. It's not like the Turkey earthquake where so many people just died because of this concrete, and when nobody could take them out of that. There were no rescue teams could actually get to them. So we should really be thinking of the materials we're using because it is hurting people and it's hurting the planet. So what are we doing as architects? We have to think about these issues because we're the ones who are designing, and people are led by what we do or what we say. And I feel that, there's a lot of responsibility on us as to how we work now. And so I'm very lucky. I found these materials in my own country. I work with them. My people they accept it because it's something they've used all their lives. Now they know that it's also safe. And my women, the beautiful designs they make are incredible. So it's like, what they've learned from their mother to mother to mother. I mean, it's all been going down generations. And now they have the chance because this mud actually lends itself to beautiful decorations. So really, none of the structure is mine anymore. It's all about co-design and co-creation. So, I can't say that I've done it. It's all together, all of us together, right? So although earlier on for many years I have worked a lot in earth masonry and earth lime brick masonry and so on, and those are also very fine buildings and they do survive, but they do take much longer because done takes time. So for the year, I decided that the best thing was to just get on with the bamboo, and it can go very fast. So we're able to produce, like if 5 people are working, they'll produce 5 of these prefabricated panels. For five room workforce I add, the more I can produce. So it's like a factory, but not with machines, but by humans. And so that means everybody in the area starts earning. And everything that I do is finally beneficial for the community. So no money is going outside. We don't need it. I mean, don't pay anybody outside. So it's all within them and they're all earning now. And so the Lari Octagreen has this, the way it's designed is, as I said, it's modular. So if you add on more panels, you make a slightly larger room. You add some more panel, you make a kind of a squarish room. There are many permutations of the same panel that is used again and again and again, depending on whether it's for a house, or maybe it's for a school or a classroom, whether it's for a community center. There are many different combinations. And because our roofs can also be changing, we can actually do flat roofs, but we do a lot of thatch roofs because they're very simple, they are ventilated, and people know how to do them. But also, we are now experimenting with the terracotta tiles, which are locally made and can be used. I mean, there's just many different possibilities. And my roof are like collapsible roofs, so they're also prefabricated, and so it goes very fast. So, and it can be taught to anybody anywhere in the world. I mean, that's not a problem as long as you have bamboo available. So let's all start growing a lot of bamboo everywhere. And recently, based on the same prefab panel, the same size, we were asked to do a mosque for Saudi Arabia. They were having this Islamic Biennale, and of course, we prefabricated everything in Pakistan. It was put into a container, shipped to Jeddah, and my a few of my team went, but mostly it was people from there, and it was all put together in no time at all. So it is actually dubbed pop-up mosque by I don't know whether you know Sumaya Wali is a very famous architect. This young woman who's very much into sustainable architecture. She's the one who asked me to actually do it because I've known her for a long time. She's been to Pakistan. She's been to see the work we were doing at the time. This was some years ago. Anyhow, so it's a pop-up. I mean, you can dismantle it, you can take it anywhere, re-erect it, and so on and so forth. So these are the things we need for today. Everything should be reusable, everything should be have multiple uses, and so on and so on. And then with bamboo, of course, there's never any waste whatsoever. And so these are all very good qualities in all these structures, right? Well, I feel I feel architects carry a lot of burden on their shoulders, because today whatever we design has an implication far beyond what we ever imagined. At least when I was being trained as an architect, uh, we felt that we just could do anything and that was fine. The more we worked on designs which were really good for our ego, the better it was, right? It didn't matter how much it cost, it didn't matter what materials we used. The sky was the limit. If you were an architect who had ambition, and this is what you were expected to do. So all of us rose to the occasion and did all that. But I think the world has now changed. I think the younger generations have a lot of more, as I said, more responsibility to carry than we ever did. We probably should have been a little bit more thoughtful at that time, even, but we were not. I myself blame myself. I mean, I was equally responsible for doing a lot of things that, it would have been better if I had done them. But today, I feel that I really can't do any of that. I don't use any cement or any steel whatsoever, because we know that even in urban areas, it's the urban heat islands. They're because of the concrete pavers and concrete buildings and multi-story high rises, or the urban flooding that's affecting every city today, uh, because of the fact that all our roads and everything is paved with concrete, and concrete does not absorb any. It's totally impervious. So how we design the urban environment is now very important for us to understand. What we do, how much it'll hurt the planet, what kind of greenhouse gas emissions there would be. So whenever we are designing, we should really try to lower the carbon footprint in every possible manner. And I often say this to young people who ask me, they say, well, if you're putting up a building, we may need a high carbon frame, for instance, like a reinforced concrete frame or a steel frame. So if you're forced to do this for any reason, what about the interiors? Why aren't we lowering the carbon in the interior finishes? Because I think every one of us now is responsible. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's the global north or global south. I mean, I don't think that because I'm the global south and I have not inflicted as much damage as global north, I can get away with it. No, I don't think so. I also carry a lot of responsibility. Today, if we have 3 million families to be housed, well, there'll be a lot of carbon emissions if we don't do it right. And somewhere something it will hurt. So I think all of us need to think a lot about it. We need to bring about more humanism in our work. We need to be thinking of people more than ourselves, maybe. And I think we have to learn to uh, practice in a different manner altogether than we ever did before. Because the world is full of disruptions. It's got lots of issues now. But the good thing is there are lots of movements like transition design, like eco-urbanism, like, degrowth. So there are a lot of people thinking about it. And what we need to see is to see how we also just try to support the right kind of movements. Or whether it's Baza, which is my barefoot social architecture, or countries like mine, that's essential. And there's so many countries in sub-Sahara and in South Asia who have similar conditions than Pakistan. And really, I think all of us, whether in the global north or south, now have to rethink the way we are operating as architects. Maybe the other complexion of the whole profession has to change. It's no longer the Medicis of Florence giving you commissions, or the Pope giving you commissions, or the robber barons of the East India Company, or the merchant princes of the Industrial Revolution, or even the high-tech giants that we have today. They're not the ones anymore that are important even, because what they are doing most of the time that's hurting. So why not work with poor people who will do the right thing? I think we're much better. You'll be much happier. I am much happier, definitely, yes. Okay, well, I think that this slogan has been used a lot in many different ways, like for education also, which I thought was very good as well, and for many other ways. And I think to me it would mean that architects no longer work for the elite 1%, which we mostly do. That the time has come for all of us to be able to help humanity and the planet both. It's not only people, it's only the earth that we all have to take care of. So it's not even leave no one behind, but don't even leave, the planet behind. I mean, you have to really carry that along as well. So for me, it would mean, again, as I said, a more humanistic form of architecture, a kind of, I call it the democratization of architecture, or we can call it the decolonization of architecture. All these have to be done if you want to relate to the poor and to the majority of the people who live on this planet. Because design services don't have to be only for the rich. In fact, I think design is needed far more when you work for the poor with very few materials or very constrained materials, rather than with the rich when you can have everything available for you. But I think you work much harder if you don't have any money. That's why I'm saying no money. I'd rather not have money. I'd rather do without any kind of, and no charity and no handouts. We need to build up capacity of people. We need to have them to have better designs, goods. Why should they suffer from bad design? Why should they suffer from poor design that's normally handed out to them? It's not fair. I mean, with multinational corporations, we do the best to please them with the best of design ability, right? And when it comes to the poor, we say, okay, give them just anything. It's not fair. So I'd rather, yeah, I'm all for leaving no one behind. Yes. Yeah, this question I've been posed a lot of times, and of course, people are intrigued because I come from a Muslim country, largely conservative. Women are not really given the prominence they need or the opportunities they need. There's a lot of things about countries like ours where women are not really able to perform as they could. But I found that with professional women, maybe it's still not quite good enough, even in the West, even in the global North. But coming back to my own country and myself, I think the issue is that all of us have belonged to a very privileged background. We've had a very strong family support system. And so, yes, there were difficulties in the beginning. Yes, the contractors or other people thought I could not do many things, like climbing up the stairs, a kind of almost broken, ladder. and whether I dared to do that. So I had to pass this test many times that I could do it. And that brought about a certain respect for me. Then of course there was the issue of design, and then people found I could do equally well, sometimes even better, maybe in many ways. So I think that was okay. And then of course there was the problem with our peers, because when I got more prominence, I think people thought, why? Because she's a woman, how could she do it? That kind of thing. So that's okay. I think they're part of the game. Okay. I think everybody faces that. But what I found was that in country like mine, people were very courteous. Men were very courteous towards me. They were really very respectful and took a lot of care of me. Actually, I don't know whether it's my family or I don't know what it was, but I just didn't have the difficulty that I think young people or young professionals face in the West. And then somehow I just got so many opportunities because I work in Pakistan, which has lots of deficits. Things are not okay. Everything is not worked out. And you have to find ways to handle those things. But I think handling that has really taught me a lot of things. How do you work with constrained resources? How do you work with people, and so on and so forth? So I think I've had lots of advantages, and because again, my family support system, my own husband, my children, I mean, they all were supportive. So I managed to do the things I wanted to. And, I could do the research I wanted. I could work in heritage. I could work in, poor areas. I literally could do what I wanted to do. And so I think it was important for me to give up my earlier practice, which was fine. It was good, and it brought me a lot of prestige. But I don't think that and I'm very glad that I gave it up at the time I did, because it opened up so many other doors for me. And I think this is the whole thing with architects. You can do so much more than just design the buildings for the rich. And I think, yeah, so I've just had a very rewarding life. I mean, I enjoyed designing for the rich as well at one time. I wouldn't do it now. I don't do anything for the rich anymore. But there was a time when I did all that as well. So yeah, but I don't. I think being a Pakistani woman architect has been very good for me. I've had just so many opportunities to be able to do things. And as I said, in the humanitarian field, women, because I'm a woman, I had access everywhere. I could talk to everybody, and that was a great advantage. So nothing but advantages. I'm sorry. Okay. Well, I feel that there's so many things wrong with the environment related kind of activities that are done, whether it's multi-story buildings, whether it's the use of concrete, whether it's the way heritage is being destroyed in my own country, in my own city. Uh, I feel that, and there are so many areas in places like, or in countries like Pakistan, the poor areas are so neglected. And I mean, there's just so much going on which is not okay for people. And because I think architects are more conscious of all this than other people, because that poor environment, it affects you, and how, but we also know how to improve it. So if we know something that we can do better or tell people, why aren't we going and doing it? Why are we waiting for commissions or somebody coming and telling us to do it? When we feel strongly about something, we should be out there championing a cause and saying, okay, let's get on and do it. And I've done quite a lot of this, and I find that I get the support I need. People will join you if you do the right thing. But I think we have to always rise above our own selves, above our own interests. If you can do that, then you can make a world of difference in everything around you. Whether it's the urban environment, whether it's containing urban flooding, or stopping the urban heat islands, or just transforming streets into place of people to enjoy rather than full of traffic and garbage and polluted air. I mean, it's awful what goes on in our cities. Why are we accepting it? So I just feel that architects should rise up and think that this is their job to make sure that everything is okay around them, because we know what can be done. So if you know something and you don't do anything about it, well, I think this is not okay. So I start to feel guilty, so I have to do something. Okay.